What was the Thames riverfront like before the luxury flats? This instalment of Riverfront History moves upstream from Chelsea Reach towards Fulham. Chelsea began as an Anglo-Saxon village. The old church dates from several hundred years later, in the 1100s. By the mid-1700s, fashionable London had expanded upstream and upwind to reach it. Chelsea is an Old English word which means landing place of chalk or limestone. In the Domesday Book of 1086, Chelsea was, like most of London, part of an administrative region called the Ossulstone Hundred. King Henry VIII acquired the manor of Chelsea in 1536. The manor house stood until 1753, when the riverside village of Chelsea was becoming a suburb. Like the opposite bank, Chelsea's riverfront was fields and market gardens, with some industry, but there were also pleasure gardens and fine houses. Along Chelsea Reach, gardens came down to the river. A 1664 map of Chelsea shows gardens from the Earl of Ranelagh's to the Duke of Beaufort's. The first Chelsea Bridge was originally named after Queen Victoria. It opened in 1858 to provide access to the new Battersea Park. It was renamed Chelsea Bridge because it might bring discredit to the name, as it was narrow and possibly unsafe. As a toll bridge, it was also unpopular until it was made toll-free on Sundays. It was replaced in 1937 to meet the requirements of motor traffic. The Westbourne reaches the Thames through an outlet in the Chelsea Embankment, 270 metres upstream of Chelsea Bridge. This marks the boundary between Chelsea and the city of Westminster. The Westbourne also formed the boundary of Ranelagh's Gardens, a popular place for polite society to entertain and socialise. Mozart conducted a concert of his own music there in 1764, but the gardens fell out of favour and closed in 1803. Its famous rotunda, a venue for balls, banquets and concerts, was demolished in 1805. The gardens have been incorporated into the grounds of the Royal Hospital, where the Chelsea Flower Show now takes place. The Royal Hospital was founded by royal warrant to care for those broken by age or war. The future home of the Chelsea pensioners was designed by Sir Christopher Wren and opened in 1692. In 1673, the Worshipful Society of Apothecaries of London leased the land next door for a botanical garden to study plants. It featured the first heated glasshouse or greenhouse in 1723. The Chelsea Physic Garden remains London's oldest botanical garden. Its 4 acres of medicinal, herbal and valuable plants are open to the public. Before the Chelsea Embankment was built, the Physic Gardens came down to the river and had a water gate, as in this 1871 view. It shows what was there before the row of large terraced houses which still stand on the Chelsea Embankment opposite Battersea Park. They were designed by the architect Norman Shaw in the Queen Anne Revival style. Swan House with its distinctive oriel windows is left of centre. The next bridge along Chelsea Reach was called Albert Bridge, even though the Victoria Bridge had been renamed. It opened as a toll bridge in 1873. The tolls were unpopular and were abolished when the bridge was taken into public ownership in 1879. The toll booths have been preserved at both ends, as has the sign which told troops to break step in case they damaged the trembling bridge. Albert Bridge was a hybrid design even before central piers were added later. At night it is lit by 4,000 LED lights. After the Great Stink of 1858, Bazalgette's embankment scheme transformed the riverfront. It was a network of drains and sewers which terminated in the Victoria and Chelsea embankments. Both of these embankments contained an intercepting sewer with a roadway above. They were built out into the river over the foreshore. This made the river narrower and deeper. It also made the tides stronger. Photographs show the Chelsea embankment nearing completion. Before the embankment, the former Lindsay Row, or Cheney Walk as it is now, was at the edge of the river. Large Late Georgian houses had been built there. Beaufort House had been the former home of Henry VIII's ill-fated Chancellor, Sir Thomas More. Eventually it passed to the Duke of Beaufort. The house was set well back from the river, nearer to the King's Road. It had extensive gardens, which are now the site of Crosby Moran Hall, a combination of 1990s mock Tudor red brick and an original grey stone hall of 1466, which was transplanted from Bishopsgate in 1910. The present Battersea Bridge replaced its wooden predecessor in 1890. The American artist James Whistler lived in various houses on or near Cheney Walk. Like the printer Samuel Lee, Whistler was inspired by a steamer trip to paint this part of the river. His nighttime views are known as nocturnes. His nocturne blue and gold depicts one of the piers of the old Battersea Bridge. His nocturne grey and silver depicts Chelsea from Battersea. The tower is Chelsea Old Church. The final stretch of actual Chelsea riverfront ran from Battersea Bridge to Chelsea Creek. The area now known as World's End was where Cheney Walk rejoined the riverfront after the embankment. As Lindsay Wharf, it was always a place for working boats and boat builders such as Greaves's Boatyard. The Greaves family and friends included artists and photographers who recorded this part of the riverfront. A sketch by one of the Greaveses shows sailing barges moored with Old Battersea Bridge in the background. This working part of the river included Lindsay Wharf, a berth for coal barges. Since 1935, the Chelsea Yacht and Boat Company has run the houseboats and moorings by Battersea Bridge. After World War II, they replaced the old sailing barges and lighters with surplus wartime craft, including motor torpedo boats, MTBs, and landing craft. The houseboats are still a Chelsea landmark. Between Battersea Bridge and Chelsea Creek was a rural area described as formerly Lady Cremorne's in Lee's 1829 panorama. Cremorne Gardens became open to the public from 1843 to 1877. The attractions included balloon ascents, fireworks and dancing. An 1870 account called it the maddest place in London after 10 o'clock in the evening. In 1982, a remnant reopened which features the original gates restored. Chelsea Creek, also known as Counters Creek, formed the last part of the Kensington Canal before it flowed into the Thames. The creek also marks the boundary between Chelsea and Fulham. Each side of the creek is in a different borough. Lots Road Power Station opened in 1905. It used up to 700 tons of coal a day to provide electric power for both the underground and tramways. Chelsea Harbour is on the other side of the creek, which means it's in Fulham. We will cover it in our next instalment, which will be Riverfront History Fulham. This will go from Chelsea Creek to Putney. Thank you for watching.